Well, thank you very much. First, let me give praise to Almighty God and to thank Him for our lives, and also to say good morning to all your listeners and all of you in Radio Gold. Parliament has a tradition. All African parliaments and even the Commonwealth parliaments have a tradition called benchmarking. You look at how parliaments have set as far as certain issues, policies are concerned, and you try and see whether you could also improve to that level, or see how you can also tweak your own policies and directions to see whether you can also achieve an alternative development paradigm. So it's always good when we have MPs from various parts of the continent and other parts of the world coming down to share their experiences with us, and we also traveling to those places. Since I got into Parliament, there have been so many instances when parliamentarians from many other countries have come to Ghana to share experiences, to learn, and also Ghanaian parliamentarians have traveled far and wide to do same. So the local government committee of one batch of us were in Rwanda late last year on the same benchmarking, because they went in to take the experience of Rwanda. And our group, we divided the team into two. The committee is made up of 20 people. So one group were in Rwanda, and our group were in Kenya. Another group will be going to Tanzania later in the year. So that is exactly why we are here now.
How many days, how longer would you be there? When did you arrive there, and for how many days more would you stay there?
We got here over the last weekend, and we're supposed to be here until this weekend, before going back to Accra. The whole program was supposed to take a week.
Now, take us back to 25th of June. Today's Thursday, so that's Tuesday, when what happened. We understand you were in the Kenyan parliament. Exactly what happened? What did you see?
Okay, thank you very much again. Let me see. You see, the previous week there has been some disturbances in town over the issue of taxes. The government is proposing new taxes in order to inform the budget and also their financial policy for 2024-2025. Their budget cycle will end on the 30th of June. So Parliament has been working on these taxes. The citizens are vehemently opposed to introduction of new taxes. So Parliament made to the government finance ministry, they made concessions on certain aspects of the tax bill. There was a tax on bread, for example, which was taken off. Tax on sanitary pads, which were taken off. Then they insisted on the removal on tax of electronic transactions. Just like the e-levy, we were resisting, but were not successful. Then there's also the sanitation tax. Then there's also the called land tax. The ordinary citizens are supposed to be paying in anticipation of owning a land. So all these taxes the people felt were inimical to their development and their growth, especially the youth who said that they have no jobs to do, and so they can't be paying these taxes for the government and government officials to enjoy and to be living affluent and ostentatious lives. They were also not happy with the fact that the presidents have been using a lot of president and government officials having traveling on expensive trips. And according to one of their leaders, they're against it, and they think that the president could travel with Kenya Airways instead of traveling in private jets, and also going out with big delegations, which is costing the taxpayer. One pertinent point they also made, the fact that over the past 2 years, this new government has borrowed more than the previous government in 10 years. And they can't see what the monies have been used for. So they're asking that until the government is able to give them what they've used all those monies they borrowed for, they're not ready to accept any new form of taxes. So they are not going to compromise. The 7 various items that have been removed from the bill are not sufficient enough. They just don't want any new tax. The government also have a feeling that that's the only way they can raise the 420 billion they are looking for to meet their budget. So it's been like back and forth between the Senate, the National Assembly, and the citizenry. You know, Kenya, they have 2 chambers. They have the National Assembly, which is made up of almost about 620-something people. And then they have the Senate, which is made up of 67. So the 2 houses have been going, have been working on the document. Until last Tuesday, the document went through the second, or was due to go through the second reading. So in the morning, we had heard that the people were anticipating to storm Parliament to prevent Parliament from passing the bill, from taking the bill to the second reading, because they know that once it goes to the second reading, the third reading is just a matter of formality, and they to transmit it to the president within 48 hours for his assent. But then the security told us that they will not breach the parameters of, or the jurisdiction of Parliament, because they made enough security provision. And normally, in all those days in the past, when they come, they dance around the parliamentary fence on the street, but they don't breach the barriers, or they don't breach the fence or the walls of Parliament. So we were there. We've almost done. We finished our job, and then we were told that it is time for lunch. So we were escorted by our colleague members of Parliament in the finance and also devolution committees of the Kenyan Parliament to have lunch at the members' lodge. We were there when we started hearing the noise, coming. So everybody that as normal, they were going to sing and dance and make the noise and go away. But all of a sudden, the numbers were so huge, and the noise was so deafening, and you couldn't hear anything. All you hear is the cannons, water cannons, and the canisters, tear gas canisters, and others. So we thought that the soldiers were dealing with them. But the noise kept on drawing closer to us in the restaurant. So some of the MPs became apprehensive. We didn't know what was happening, because we never expected that they would come so close to Parliament House. In some few minutes, we got up to see what was happening. We saw the policemen running away, abandoning their vehicle, because the people were not, they were just so determined that not even when their colleagues were dropping in front of them, not even the tear gas, not the hot water, the pepper spray, and all those things could push them off. They were just coming. The closest police vehicle, they started vandalizing it. All the policemen on horses started running away because the people were not afraid of the horses. And their number was just too huge. And you see, they were so, faceless that you don't even see who the leadership is to engage. And they were coming in the numbers from different angles. So they just overwhelmed the security. By the time the military reinforcements were called in, they'd already reached Parliament House. Well, the whole place, the restaurant where we were, was fully engulfed in smoke from the tear gas. Because what they were now doing that, they were now throwing the tear gas into the parliamentary compound and throwing it to the police. When the police throws it, then they return it to the police. And they themselves also had their own canisters and were just throwing it. So all of us were evacuated from the restaurant to a safe place. Then they broke into the restaurant. We were watching it on the TV. And started scattering the food and everything in the restaurant. So the people saw, the security saw that where we were was too close to them. So immediately we were taken into some bunker. Then we started hearing the noise. The bunker was close to the chamber of the National Assembly. We started hearing the noise. And then the security said if they breach the gate to the National Assembly, they could get to where we were. So immediately we were then evacuated again from where we were to the library. But we saw that the doors to the library was not secured enough. We were in the library with the speaker. Immediately, the speaker was taken out. So we also had no option but to let the security to go, because the noise was so close to us, and we could hear they destroying things in the chamber. So they moved us from where we were and took us through a tunnel and then to another safe place. We were there for close to about an hour. Then our colleagues from Namibia were brought in. Then the Malawian MPs were also brought in. So it became a group of visiting MPs. We were 6 in number. The Malawians were, I think, 15. And then the Namibians were, I think, 13. They were all there. And then they came and took us once more to another place, which is higher the building. And it's a bit far away from where the chamber block was. And from there, you could see the pitch battle with the security on the street. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all, Senna. They were just not ready to back off. The military came in, the military pushes them, then they come again. So the military had no option but to start firing to see whether it would scare them. No, it didn't. So we were there when we saw
firing live bullets.
People drop. Yes.
Live bullets did not deter them.
No. 3 people dropped right there. We were seeing it from where we were at the top. Because the street where we were and the street was just about 20 or 30 meters. But we were in a secure building. So we were watching everything from the window. And they were just picking the bodies that are falling and still marching on. So the soldiers decided now to also pitch with them. So they started hitting some of them and they started scattering. So then they scattered, so they were pushed back. Another reinforcement of the army came from the extreme end of the parliamentary building. So, for example, if you take our parliament, one group of the military were coming from the Osu Cemetery side, then another group was coming from the GIJ side. You understand? And then another group was coming from the Ridge Runabout side. So the security men hold them in. So they started pushing them back. And then they also accepted that they've achieved the objective by breaking into the chamber. They've taken away the mace, the parliamentary mace. They broke into the rooms, the holding rooms, the lounge of the speakers and the various committee chairmen, scattered everything they could get, dresses, shoes, things. So they started seeing those things like trophy. So they started enjoying and celebrating on it, and then they all left. So when they left, they now encountered the military in town, in the central business district. And that is where I think other people also got shot.
So you even saw.
So we were kept in a safe place for close to 3.5 hours. Some of the MPs were evacuated. The parliamentary security decided to bring in ambulances, and the MPs were evacuated out as if they were injured or casualties, and they were all taken away. So we were left because our hotels were in town. You understand? So the people were in town, so we had to wait for at least to make sure that town was secure before we could be taken out. So finally, when around 7 p.m., things have calmed down a little. Then we were evacuated, and they used different routes. They didn't use the central business district route. They used different routes to get us to our hotel.
So you're saying all this happened within 3 hours, over 3 hours?
More than 3 hours. Because the whole thing started around 2 o'clock. And by 5:36, they were still having that battle with the security forces. Because we got back to our hotel around 8 o'clock.
And I also want to the demography of the people, the protesters. Were they just young people, or there was a mix?
Yes. Majority, let me say, close to 70% of the demonstrators were the youth, the students, and those graduates who were unemployed were principally, because when you see them, you definitely can judge. And talking to most of the MPs, they confirmed that it's majority of them are the youth. A few drivers, a few Okada riders, a few civil servants were involved though. Because see, what they are seeking and what they are asking for affects almost everybody in Kenya. So there are a lot of people who are sympathizing with them, but they do not physically participate. But those, so I can tell you, the numbers we saw, if I'm not exaggerating, it will be between 500,000 to 1 million.
Really?
Yes. It was mammoth. It was huge.
Because I realized that you were struggling to find an adjective to describe the numbers. You have done commentary.
The numbers were huge. For my work as a commentator, I can tell you, the numbers were huge.
Wow.
And you see, they're not people who had broken themselves into maybe say batches. They locked themselves up. It's not easy to break them. And when they come, when they are pushed back, they go back and then come with much more force. So the security men are always forced to withdraw. So the security men were always conceding space and grounds to them till they breached the parliamentary fence. They broke the fence. Maybe you see, the advantage they had is that the parliament house is not block fenced like ours. It is metal fenced. So they just push, with their numbers, they just push the metal and broke it down. And some of them climbed. Right in front of us, we saw them just vandalizing the police vehicle, the water cannon, and then just putting fire into it and burning it down. They burnt 3 police vehicles right in front of us.
And from your description, this was a surprising turn of events, because you say your colleagues told you they've been there a couple of times, just dance around.
Yes.
Indicates.
I think the whole security architecture underestimated and underrated the determination of the people. The intelligence was not good enough. And also, they took it for granted that, and truth be told, the guys had never been violent until that day. I think the passage of the bill by Parliament annoyed and angered them. That in spite of all our protests for a week, in spite of other people have died, you've still gone ahead to pass the bill. So they said that they were going to visit the members of Parliament who voted for the bill one by one in their various houses. And some of the MPs, they've lost their property because their houses have been burnt in their constituencies. Their properties have been vandalized. They evacuated their families because their families are not safe. Because unlike us, they do electronic voting. So the people have been able to identify all those who voted for the bill and those who voted against.
Oh, so it was easy for them to tell which MP voted for or against.
Yes.
Wow. And I'm guessing you've also been subsequently having interactions with some of these MPs, even a day or two after the event. What do they tell you about how they still feel about it and their own security?
Senator, the House is divided. The House is divided just like we do in Ghana. It's divided on political lines. So the opposition all voted against, and the majority voted for. So most of the time, when you're talking to the MP, based upon where he or she belongs, he will give you a narration. The majority of people have a feeling that if we don't pass the bill, where are we going to raise money to embark upon the infrastructure and other developmental programs with them? The government seems to have very good intentions, for example, improving teacher education so they can get more teachers into classrooms, improving local infrastructure like health and other things, roads. They mentioned all that. But the contention of the minority was to that, look, the people are already burdened with taxes. And so government should find some different ways or ingenious ways to be able to raise the revenue they are looking for instead of bringing in new taxes. So they were very, very angry. In fact, when the shootings were going on, a group of female MPs started crying and shouting even in the chamber, "Stop killing our children, stop killing our children," and banging on the table. So even among Parliament, there are those who support the demonstrators and those who are against. But let me tell you, majority of the staff we interacted with, the parliamentary staff, they think that the government has become too obstinate and intransigent in this things. They felt that the Parliament should have suspended the debate and the consideration of the bill and then do more engagements with various groups so that we could have some resolution, and instead of hurrying try to beat the deadline of June 30th to get the bill passed. Yesterday was very, very quiet. The whole day was peaceful. But this morning, started, massing up to march onto the State House itself. In spite of the fact that the president has decided that he is not going to assent and referring the bill back to Parliament, they said they don't trust the president. So they are still marching on to the State House.
Wow. So
many shops have not been opened this morning. A lot of people have not, they're scared of what will happen. The streets are quiet though, but you can see the youth in pockets marching towards where they're going to converge.
I see. Are you anywhere near the Parliament today?
No, as for the Parliament, even yesterday we abandoned our distance. We couldn't go there. We are trying to change our tickets so that we could come back to Ghana, and we expected to leave here tomorrow. We didn't go anywhere near Parliament House. We even wanted to have their meeting in our hotel and get them, but the MP said they were also scared to even drive through town and come out. So as a Parliament, as I'm talking to you now, I don't think anyone will want to work there. We are in town. We are in the western part of Nairobi. Unfortunately for us, we are not too far from the State House, but we are in a much more secure place. And they deployed a lot of security men to where we are. The good thing for all Kenyans is the fact that demonstrators are not destroying private property.
Okay.
It's only some few places in other counties where they went into shops and properties where they thought belonged to some of the politicians. They attacked those properties. They broke into shops, wineries and things, and just took away some of the things there. But in Nairobi, they're not really touching on private property. They're not touching public properties too, apart from the ones they vandalized around the Parliament House. In town itself, no, they're not doing that. So people drive around peacefully, people walk around peacefully, but then the demonstrators are doing their own thing. The people who walk around cheer them on. They start shouting, reject, 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 which has become their ambition. And then some also shout for change. So they walk around, the people who drive honk, there are horns for them and all those things, but they're not interested, the youth are not interested in destroying people's property. They're interested in the state institutions, especially the Parliament and also the executive,
Two things. First of all, when we're doing the narration, I could even hear the emotion in your voice. Give us an idea. Describe how did you feel when all this was going on?
We were traumatized. We were. Let me tell you, it's just sheer bravery and also consoling ourselves that look, we are not Kenyans, and they could see when they see us. That's the only thing I give. But then, the sight that day was scary. I have taken part in many demonstrations, the Wahala demonstrations, when we had a serious confrontation with the security. You remember ACP Akrofi at that time, Mr. Charge, I have confronted security men before on all those things. I've stood right in front of them, virtually challenging them to shoot at us. We've done those things before. But this one was a bit, maybe because I'm not a participant. Sometimes when you are in it, you don't really see the dangers involved. But when sitting outside and seeing possibly my children, my brothers and sisters on the street, and the sort of confrontation they were having with the security services, I admire their courage and determination. then I was extremely scared for them. And I was extremely scared for all of us who were in the parliamentary precincts at the time. Because if the people are getting close to us, they will not be able to differentiate between a Kenyan MP, a Namibian MP, or a Ghanaian MP. All of us, our lives will have been at stake. And there was total confusion. You don't know who was controlling what. When you started running towards this place, you see people running from there. Then you turn. Then you start running towards another place. You see people running from there. It's like there's no planned evacuation, evacuation plan for anybody. Everybody, because the people were coming from various angles, and the noise and the canisters and the smoke were coming from different angles. So you don't know where to pass. It was scary. It was scary. One Namibian MP collapsed.
Really?
She has to be given emergency distance to resuscitate her.
Was any of you hurt?
No.
And I realized
we were given a very good protection. We had close to about 6 security men around us and communicating with our people where to go and where to move. We were well taken care of.
And I realized listening to you when we were going through the taxes. You know these taxes very well. In fact, some of them are taxes that you have confronted as a minority in parliament, but failed. Were you, when they told you this was the reason this thing was happening, were you taken aback in any way in terms of the responses when it happened in Ghana and Kenya?
Sir, I wasn't. But let me say this. I'm not saying it because I'm getting out of parliament. I think African parliaments are failing African democracies. Because just as some of our colleagues, the other side, knew that these taxes their government was introducing were detrimental to the development of the country and will affect the people, suffocate the people further. But because of partisan considerations, went ahead and did it. Look at the battle we have to fight on the U-levy. Look at what we went through on the budget last year. You understand? There are people within the majority who privately, when they're talking to you, know that the steps they were taking at the time were wrong. But then they took it for convenience and for fear that they will be victimized by their own party. So they did it. So you ask them, were you representing your party in parliament or you represent the people who voted for you? And then they tell you, it's easier said than done. You wait when you come to power and see whether you can do that. It's the same thing talking to members of parliament in Kenya. They accept that the government was being too, let me say, greedy in its demand for revenue to do the things they want to do. But they have no option. They have no option. Yesterday, like this, some people were criticizing the vice president. The vice president came. In fact, what is happening in Kenya is not different from what has happened in Ghana. You know, this current president used to be vice president of the former president. And 1 year to elections, he broke away from the president and started talking that he doesn't like these taxes, he doesn't like this policy, he doesn't like this policy. When he's voted for, he will change this policy, like the way Baumia is doing in Ghana. And then he was voted for. And then he's come to do worse than the things which were being done under Uhuru Kenyatta. So the population has become very angry and disillusioned. The promises he gave the youth, they are not seeing it within the 2 years. So they become so disappointed and frustrated. The hope that they had has spiraled into frustration. You understand? So they are not ready to compromise at all. That's why they are saying they don't even trust him anymore. 2, he criticized the borrowing under Uhuru Kenyatta. And the youth are saying today that he has come to borrow in 2 years, borrowed more than who Kenyatta borrowed in 10 years. Like Ghana. Baumia criticized John Mahama for borrowing. But under him and Akufo-Addo, they borrowed more than all the governments in history. Today, as we are talking to you in Kenya, the vice president is having a problem with the president. So yesterday, he also did a broadcast pleading with the youth that he knows they are disappointed, but they should stop the violence and rather wait and vote the president out in the next election.
All right.
So there's no difference between the situation that is happening in Kenya and what we've been going through in Ghana. You think that they have the same plate, they are playing the same song and singing the same choruses. Because what I saw on Tuesday during the debate is not different from what we went through. Just that they didn't go to a level of exchanging blows and throwing things at each other and trying to seize the speaker's chair. They didn't go to that level possibly because of the number. The majority are far, far more than the minority. A difference of about 60. I suspect that if they were that close like ours, it would have been worse.
I see. There's a lot more conversation to be had on the lessons for you. And I'm hoping that when you get back...
Many. One of the things that I think that this experience has given me is to help me have a whole chapter in my book. A whole chapter, because I've come to learn a lot. And I've also experienced a lot in these few days, talking to people in government, people outside government, and also listening to, reports, and also members of parliament and other presenters on TV, listening to them as they reflect on what happened, and taking notes and acquiring knowledge. It's been wonderful experience, even though it has been that of fear and also near danger. I think it's been an experience for all of us members of parliament. I believe that my colleagues in the majority, some of whom who are deputy ministers, when we all go back, what has happened here will be an eye-opener, an experience for us to be able to influence decisions amongst our groups in parliament, especially the majority. If they have any intention, for example, like the issue of tax waivers with the minority have been fighting all this time, I think it's better they go back to the people and tell the people that, look, be careful. Don't let us push this. If the people say they don't want it, let's cut it. Because what has happened in Kenya, nobody should think can never happen in Ghana. It can. It can. Because there's a limit to which people can tolerate nonsense. When they explode from that level, they can't be controlled. So now, there's one preaching that I have on my phone by Duncan Williams. He talked about the fear, the danger inherent in our system in continuing to disappoint people, push people down the level of squalor, deprivation, anger, homelessness, hopelessness. When you get to the people lose their sense of judgment, because after all, to them, at that level, life is more meaningless. And in their frustration, they become so desperate and they're determined to do whatever they can to survive. And that is what is happening. That's what is playing on our faces here in Kenya.
I see. There's a listener who wants me to ask you whether Mohammed Tafero, Honorable Member of Parliament for Nantong, is on the delegation.
Yes, he is.
Oh, he's on the delegation.
Local government committee. Yes.
Okay. In fact, this is what he sent me. Seldel Glad, I think he's in Rwanda now. He says, please ask Honorable whether the NPP MP who said that passing the levy was more important to him than his life also ran away to safety with them.
So that I wasn't happy when yesterday I had some of, let me say, even one of our own communicators to make reference to that. It is about somebody's life. And what we've been through is not an experience that I want anyone to use to, let me say, throw something into the face of any of us. I may have said something that nobody is comfortable with, but you cannot use the situation I've been through here. You must be a bit sensitive to what we have been through. We are visitors. We are not in our own homes at this time. So to use what is happening here and use that to throw it back at us will be insensitive. Honorable Kafiru may have said something at a time which I know today as regretted. I have been with him and we've had discussions. And I don't think he will even, given the opportunity, he will say what he has said almost a year ago. He will even love to see it. No. Because we've been talking and all of us here have become politically born again. I mean, Frank, what do you say now?
Are you sure?
I wish that I wish that all of us I wish that all of us members of parliament were in Kenya to experience what the members of parliament in Kenya had experienced. If that doesn't change our way of doing things and our perception, then even the coming of Jesus Christ will not change us.
I see. Like I said, Honorable, when you come to Ghana, I think we will arrange and have a much more extended conversation on this. But
thank you very much. Yes, a lot that we have to talk about, a lot on issue of politics, issue of let me say security, and issue of handling social uprisings like what we saw. I think all of us will have to share the experience we've had here with our colleagues back home to be able to see whether we can build a better society and whether we can how we can handle these things better in the future. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. That's Honorable Edwin Nii Lante Vanderpuye. And if you know Nii Lante Vanderpuye, not one to be easily scared. To be very frank, I've dealt with him many times, and he's not one of those people who are easily scared.